"Hi everyone, it's too deep." That was how she always greeted the world, soft, steady, and trying her best to hide the storms moving quietly behind her smile. But the day everything changed, her voice trembled just a little. She had woken up crying James's name again, reaching into the empty air as if she could pull him back through the fragile fabric of her dreams. The room was quiet, only the echo of her own breath filling it. She clasped her hands together and whispered a small prayer for peace, for strength, for the courage to face what she knew was coming. The morning routine with little NHI, her small cat, her companion, the childlike heartbeat of her home, was the only thing keeping her grounded. She heated water, washed Nee's face, brushed her tiny teeth, and set out a bowl of noodles. But NHI didn't want to eat. She didn't want to go to school. She wanted James. That name stung differently now. Diep knelt down and stroked Nee's soft fur. She whispered comfort, promised James would return soon, promised that studying was important, even if life felt lonely. But while she spoke, her own heart throbbed with a truth she didn't dare say. James didn't leave because of work. He left because of her. Because of a secret she had finally said aloud. She walked NHI to school, pretending to be strong, pretending that nothing was wrong. NHI kept looking up at her with worried eyes far too wise for a little creature. "I miss him," NHI seemed to say with every hesitant step. "I know," Diep murmured, "but we'll be okay." She said it for NHI, not for herself. At work, she buried herself in the chaos of buying and checking crops, mangoes, sweet potatoes, whatever the season offered. Workers called to her for instructions. Buyers negotiated. People admired her for running a small company on her own. They had no idea how desperately she was holding everything together after James vanished. Then came the meeting with the man who spoke in low, cold tones, the father of James. He didn't bother pretending kindness. He simply asked, "Do you know James? My son?" He wanted someone to send James out of the country, to force him away from the girl he wanted to marry, a poor, uneducated girl in his eyes. A girl unworthy. A girl like too deep. She refused, trembling inside, but the man didn't relent. He offered wealth, businesses, entire assets just for the job to be done. And when she still refused, he made it clear that someone else would do the job if she didn't. Someone cruel, someone who wouldn't worry about hurting James. Diep left that meeting with her heart in her hands. She had known James's father hated her, but she never imagined the lengths he would go to destroy them. She told James everything that same night. Her secret, the threat, the truth about his father. And the next morning, James was gone. No message. No goodbye. Only silence. As if he feared that staying with her meant losing everything else. Or worse, getting her hurt. Days passed with no word from him. Diep continued her work, negotiating with farmers, inspecting sweet potato fields, guiding buyers up rough mountain paths, arranging payments. She tried to keep her voice steady, her steps sure, her smile gentle, but every part of her felt hollow. One day, as she and NHI were browsing for a small dress, an old man she knew suddenly spotted them and fled. Terrified, she chased him down, breathless, confused, until he finally confessed. He had overheard something. He had been threatened by powerful people, and he was too afraid to speak the whole truth. But he warned her, "Be careful of James's father. He holds power over everything here. He has known your past, your story, even before you understood it. That's why he forbids your love. That's why he will destroy it." Her heart sank deeper than she thought possible. If James's father knew her secret from the beginning, if he had been pulling strings, shaping her entire fate, then what chance did she and James have? She barely had time to process the fear when she noticed NHI missing. Her heart nearly stopped. She ran everywhere, shouting Nee's name, her voice breaking every time it echoed back to her. The world blurred as panic consumed her. When she finally found the tiny cat chasing a dragonfly near the bushes, Diep collapsed to her knees, shaking. "Don't run away like that. I was so scared. What if something happened to you? What if someone hurt you?" NHI nuzzled her, apologizing in her own small way, and Diep held her close as tears ran freely down her face. That night, She made sweet potato dishes for NHI, planted baby vegetable sprouts together, trying to keep life gentle despite the terror quietly circling them. She kept telling herself they were safe. She kept telling herself James would call. When the phone finally rang, she nearly dropped it. James's voice was calm, but distant, too distant. He said he was overseas. Important business. Couldn't explain. Would return in 2 or 3 days. But something in his tone felt rehearsed, as if he were reading from a script written by fear. NHI squealed happily and talked to him, not noticing the tightness in Diep's voice or the weight she kept swallowing down her throat. After the call ended, an old woman's whispered warning returned to her mind. He disappeared the moment you told him the truth. His father has shaped your fate since you were small. Be careful. He will do anything to keep you apart. Diep sat quietly beside NHI, brushing crumbs from the child's cheeks as tears gathered in her eyes. She missed James. She missed the life she thought they would build. And she wondered, just as she hid her secret to protect him, was James hiding something now, to protect her? The night felt cold. But she held NHI close and whispered, almost to herself, if the truth sent him away, will it ever bring him back?